Of course, reminder that this Sunday is Shabbos, Motzi Shabbos is the start of Rosh Chodesh Elul. The Ashkenazi minhag is not to blow the shofar till the second day Elul, because that's when Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain. He blew a shofar there. Although I will be blowing the shofar at our barbecue for those who have signed up, because we don't have a minyan every day, so at least let's hear the shofar. And most people will recite Psalm 29, or was it Psalm 27? I've just forgotten. 27, right. LaDavid Hashem Ori V'Yishi, and we basically get ourselves ready for Rosh Hashanah. We get ourselves in the mood, spiritually and physically as well, to come up to Hashem, to think about what we do. I always think it's an amazing time that Hashem and the rabbis put in, because otherwise the life will just carry on and carry on and carry on, and there would be no natural stop to people. I'm not talking about just doing sins and averos, but also it's a good time for a good health check, not physically but emotionally. It's a good, as I like to say, it breaks up your life into years. That might sound like a simplistic statement to say, but it makes it into a year. Well, that's last year, so that's gone, that's new, a new beginning, a new refreshing. I can start again, put that all behind me and move forward. And I think it's a wonderful thing to do, to take that opportunity, not just from the spiritual, but to say, okay, so now I'm going to try a bit. There's so much mental health issues and all this sort of stuff today, that it's a good opportunity as well to cleanse one's mind and so on. And we were just talking earlier about social media and kids and the stuff and the amount of time we spend on it and post on it and all this, to stop and take stock of our whole life. So this is a wonderful opportunity in Elul to do that. So let's continue with this Parsha. So there are two things I want to talk about today. So a lot of times I like to challenge the narrative, not in a bad way, but also challenge how we know things, because a lot of people know things and we know things, but we don't necessarily know where it's from. So there are two things I want to talk about. The first thing is the concept of something that we know as shemos or geniza. So we know that a chumash, for example, if a chumash goes bad, we don't just throw it away in the trash, right? We bury it. If we have something with Hashem's name on, we don't just get away, we bury it, right? And the whole debate about newspapers, Jewish newspapers with Torah sheets.
We don't have a geniza here.
Not a formal geniza, no. But if you have stuff, we can sort it out, yes. And we don't just throw away Sfarim, which is a big problem nowadays, because there was a big changeover between old Sfarim and modern Sfarim, right? These what I call modern Sfarim, and this is what I call old Sfarim, okay? Different print and so on. Last week I got a call, somebody had 100 boxes in storage, somebody died, 100 books of Jewish theme. The problem is, the old Sfarim, so the modern generation don't want this stuff anymore, right? Nobody wants to strain their eyes on something like this. They want all the modern things, right? And all the people who are passing away at the moment and stuff, they have a lot of the olden stuff. Well, I told her to take some pictures for me. I haven't heard back from her.
I'm interested.
Okay.
In what location?
It was in a warehouse in Lake Worth. I said, okay, send me some pictures, because I always feel I have a responsibility.
There's a lot of film that I'm missing from New York.
Well, she said it was Jewish themed. So what that means is another story. It could be good. The amount of times people have given me Yiddish books, or cookbooks, something Jewish.
Malaysian books.
Well, it's also the fact that they just think, oh yes, we'll get the rabbi to help us clean out our house, right? I mean, look at your house, right? There was hundreds of Sfarim. It was amazing. So we called in several people, and they took lots of things from Arthur Schoenfeld and the rest. Right? So a lot of people say, oh yes, the rabbi will just dump off 15 boxes. The day I opened the shul here, we were here. There was like 4 boxes outside that were of Sfarim that somebody left. 5 boxes. Now some of them we've used have actually been very good. No name, no nothing, right? So you just keep it there. It's the shul's business to deal with, right? A lot of people think that. And that's another story, right?
Let's go to
the good stuff, right? So that's
I think they have to, the shul.
Right, so if you go to New York, you see a lot of trucks around and about New York that say Shemos, $15 a bag, and then you see lots of adverts where people shout, don't put them in without paying, because it cuts. Usually what they do is they put them usually under the graves when people are being buried. They put them underneath. I personally, when I used to do taharas, I've never done the tahara in this country, but in England when we used to do taharas, we sometimes, for people, we would put stuff inside the actual coffin. So we would put the svarim in. So we won't go too squeamish, and we put stuff like Tevye, your friend Tevye. He was a big rabbi thing. So when I did his tahara, we put some of his svarim, the old svarim, in his actual coffin.
Just in case you wanted to learn why,
It's supposed to be also a good shemira for it, right? You get buried with Jewish books and svarim. It's like a
shemira for the, that malachi.
Right. Again, we don't want to get too squeamish about these sort of things and go into, but it's supposed to be a shmira, it protects the body, whatever. So, and then they usually put them underneath. And of course, I haven't seen it so much in this country here. Probably New York, they do it a lot. They didn't do it I don't remember them doing it at a lot of these shuls that get built. I wonder, BRS, I don't think did it. Maybe they will. But in England, every time a new Jewish building or school or shul is being built and they get the foundations, they put a big notice up, right? Shemos, and they bury Shemos in the foundations. I should speak to Rabbi. Oh yeah, it's very common. I should speak to Rabbi Goldberg at BRS because they're building a whole big new thing. Because you're in construction, right? You build the stuff and then you got to fill up the middle. Yep. So, and usually that doesn't cost very much because, you need the space anyway. Grave you have to dig. So if you have to use a grave, you're taking away a grave that somebody else could pay money for,
For the 7 pediatric urgent care.
You did that?
I built.
You put, right, exactly. And it's also, people think, I'm not saying it's not, but people actually think, I've got svarim in the bottom. It's a protection for the building. And I'm not saying it's not. I don't say that. I'm just saying that people think also it's a good protection. You put stuff inside there. So where does that come from? Where does it say in the Torah? Where is this concept that you can't take a chumash, a siddur, something was God's name? Where's it from?
It's rabbinic.
You think it's rabbinic? So that's why I like to challenge the narrative. So actually, it comes from this week's Parsha. So saying Hashem's name in vain, we know that comes from Aseret Dibros, right? Lo sis Hashem hakechol hashov. Don't mention Hashem's name, don't carry Hashem's name for no reason. There's another prohibition about swearing falsely, swearing in the name of... Right? So we know that there is an idea of talking God's name. So where does it say that we're not allowed to ruin Hashem's thing? So actually, they say it comes from this week's Parsha. So at the beginning of the montage, is that the right word to use? The monologue or whatever you want to call it. Now Moshe Rabbeinu is going on and telling them, you're going into Israel, you're going to inherit lands, but be aware that these are pagan lands where they have lots of avodah zarah, idols, and they have to be destroyed. You have to get rid of them, you have to burn them, uproot them. Don't get involved in it because you don't want to get caught up in their belief system and so on. So it says you must burn them. Let's get the pasuk. We're in now page 998 if you're on with the last line. Going over to page 1000, that you must destroy all the places where the nations that you shall possess worship their gods. Whether it's on high mountains, on the hills, or under every leafy tree. Now, it's difficult for us to imagine this because there's no real, I spoke about it, I wrote about modern forms of idol worship in my message this week. But in the olden days, this was like everywhere, right? There were gods, there were, there's, like nowadays we see Buddhas, which is supposed to be avodah zarah, right? Because, there would be Buddhas everywhere you go, right? And so on. So, you must smash down their altars. You must break their matzevas that they made to their gods. And the Asherah trees that they would bow down to, you got to burn in fire. And you must cut down and obliterate all the names of idols from that place. Okay? Now the next pasuk Daled. This is in chapter 12, pasuk Daled, verse 4, on page 1000, says, Lo sasun kein laHashem Elokeichem. But you should not do this to Hashem your God. Now the simple meaning is, right? Simple meaning is you don't serve avodah zarah. Right? This is what they did. Lo sasun kein laHashem Elokeichem. But you must not do that to Hashem your God, i.e. serving all these idols. And that's like Rashi. If you look at Rashi 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, That's what he says. You can't do idols to Hashem in any place. Davar acher, says Rashi, another pashat is you must destroy the names of these idols, but loy sasun kain Hashem. But for Hashem's name, you mustn't destroy. So even Rashi, quoting from the Gemara, brings out that from the juxtaposition of two these besukim, you obliterate the idols' names. Don't do this to Hashem. What is it not to do to Hashem? Obliterate his name. So that's the source in the Torah from this week's Parsha, where we don't destroy Hashem. Well, we don't actively destroy Hashem's name. Obviously, if you're burying it and it ends up being decomposed, you're not doing it like here. You're doing it right when you you go actively out and defeat and smash down and burn these idols. But in Hashem's things, we don't do that. We bury it, obviously. We can't burn it. That says clearly, Rasherem tisrufon be'esh. So no burning, v'shibaratem, no smashing down. Rasherem tisrufon. So you can't burn it, you can't destroy it, you can't rip it up, and so on. And therefore, that's the idea where we learn now. And just a couple of ideas about this, because it's an important thing. Two practical halachas that I want to bring out. One is very hotly debated, and that is Jewish newspapers. If you'll notice, in my writings, I try not to, forget using the name God and stuff, I try not to use Hebrew psukim. I try not to write psukim in Hebrew in any of my writings. And even when I make translations, because sometimes you have to, right? You can't just do a whole Torah article with never quoting bits. I try not to quote the whole pasuk. And that's done on purpose. Because there are some people say if you're quoting a whole pasuk from the Torah in Hebrew, even without Hashem's name, that could be a problem. So what about all these Jewish, you go to shuls, right? Yeah. And you see
15
exactly Torah sheets.
For the week.
Exactly. And the question is, what do you do about it, right? Jewish newspapers have lots of divrei Torah in them. Question is, what do you do? And you'll be surprised, you will be absolutely not surprised, to know that it is a machlokas, it is a debate. What I follow is, I love this word, right? Remember I said there's a few words in this dictionary I love. Subliminal is my favorite. And the second one I love is reverentially.
Ooh.
Right? Reverentially.
Who's that?
It says you have to put these things away reverentially. Which means you don't just throw them in the bin with your dirty apple peels and your potatoes and whatever. You put them in a bag so that it's nice bekovedik, it's nice and honor, and you don't,
So
from reverence, right?
Anglo-English.
Yeah, so that's the second value you have. And some people say challah as well. When you take off a piece of challah from the bread that you cook, and we can't give it to the Kohen nowadays, some people say don't burn it in the oven because you could cause problems if you're burning it at the same time with other stuff. So like in Kosher Miami, what we did was, we put it in the trash reverentially. So you would wrap it up, double wrapping, and then you put it, you don't put it in there.
It begins to build, because then there's the matzah for the Eruv, or whatever.
Oh, so, okay. So I didn't want to get into a whole huge halachic stuff. Right, and there's the lulav and there's the chach. Right. So they say the same sort of thing. You put it away reverentially, so you don't step on the schach and jump on it, but you put it at the side of the highway, the side where they come on a Thursday, whatever day it is by you, and they pick it up, and whatever. But it is a.
Can you feed to the birds?
Feed what? The schach?
No.
And that's why they say also things like your wigs from... No, because you can't have any benefit from it. So feeding the birds, you're having benefit from it, because then you're not giving them other food. But anyway, I didn't want to get into too big of a debate. I just wanted to bring in that the custom I follow is I do put away these Torah sheets. I put them in a bag. Now, I used to always put them in recycling, but I saw recently that the big Rav in Eretz Yisrael, what's his name? Dein Weiss. Sternbuch, Moshe Sternbuch, right? Who was the big halachic, that he says that there is no difference between putting it in the trash or putting it into the recycling. So you can even put it in regular trash. So I would take newspapers, my Jewish press each week, right? As my wife would say, I don't do it each week. I'll just leave them piled up for a few weeks. But every few weeks, when it's time to cull the Jewish newspapers, I put them in a bag, a nice plastic bag. I actually do put them in the recycling because that's what I think is nicer. He said it doesn't matter because once they get to the place, anyway. So, because my trash can is all filthy. But my recycling bin is usually nicer, so I put them in a bag and put them there. So that's what I do with all these Torah sheets, except I should have brought it with me, and I stopped getting it. There is a big sheet book. It's about 7 or 8 pages. It's got a lot of Kabbalistic stuff and the Zohar stuff that has real Hashem's name in it, so I stopped getting it. And so on. And this is, you talked about Geniza. This is our little Geniza that somebody gives each week. I can't be bothered going to the cemetery for 1 book a week, so I'm building them up. So this, and this is not disparaging, so I'm just showing you. So this is the Chabad Chayenu. They produce every week, right? They send it to people's houses, and it has a mixture. But this has real, right? It has the Torah, right? See, Vaidaba Hashem al Moshe Lemik. See, for those on the video, it has Hashem's real name, and it has the Parsha of the week, every day, a bit of Chumash, Tanya, all this sort of stuff, right? So this is real Shemos.
And that's a weekly?
This is a weekly, yeah, it goes by the Parsha, and each week, yeah, and then messages from the Rebbe, whatever. So that's what you see, we're piling them up. There's a guy who gets them. Yeah, so, as I say, you have to be careful. If they have Hashem's name, that's why a lot of people try when they make wedding invitations not to put a full posuk on. Because some people say, well, if you put a full posuk on, it's a problem. Others say that why are these newspapers and why are these Torah sheets not a problem? Because they're never meant to last. You make a Chumash, this is meant to last. It doesn't last forever, but it's meant to last. You make a Torah sheet, it's by definition throwaway. Now, if you put Hashem's name, that's different. Right? Throwaway. The second thing I want to build out is, if you type Hashem's name, you type God on a computer, can you delete it? And the answer is yes, because that's not a real name. You know better than me, having worked in this sort of stuff, that it's not a real name, it's a pixelated. Right. And the biggest proof they give of that is if you open up the computer and there's nothing physical there, right? It's diodes, whatever it is, pixels, whatever. So if you type God, G-O-D, whoops, then you are allowed to delete it. Or if somebody sends you a message, right? You're getting all these Torah messages, whatever. You want to delete it, clutching up your phone. Again, that's not real, okay? Because it's not a real name of Hashem in that sense, because it's not tangible. Whatever words I'm trying to think of, it's not physical. It's not physical, so they allow you to delete it. So those are some of the most common things. And every so often you get a big message goes around. Whoops, we made a mistake in the newspaper, page 23, page article, God's name appeared, please cut it out and put it in the Geniza. But there are people who do put every single Torah sheet in the Geniza. Now, I tried unsuccessfully, but some shuls produce a new Yiska book every single year, and that's obviously Shemos because it has the real names of Hashem, right? And I know it's about making money and stuff, whatever. So I tried to come up with a system where the middle bits, the actual Yiska bits, right, the Torah bits, were somehow removable, and just the outer pages were changed. So those every year are garbage. Well, I say garbage, you know what I mean, right? You can throw them away. They're people's names and their loved ones or whatever. But the Torah things, otherwise, every year you're doing one, especially these big shuls that produce, and then you're ending up with other stuff. I remember, and I was trying to remember who it was. There's a story, a recent rabbi who got very annoyed with somebody who said, why are you printing all this stuff, making more shameless, causing more problems for people? Right? That's right. It was printing out stuff in schools and stuff, right? And he was printing out stuff to give to people. Siddur and Chumash. He said, Mao, you're causing people problems because now you're making them having all the shameless, you're increasing shameless in the world. So that's why you'll notice, as I said, in my drasha, you'll very rarely, hopefully never, occasionally I might, write psukim in Hebrew. I try to avoid it if possible, and even when I'm writing in the English, I try not to put the full pasuk, because why get involved in some of these debates or whatever, and also when I do papers and stuff, I did the Yud Gimel Midos, I did Hashem, because for Rosh Hashanah I gave out a lot of sheets, and I try to make sure I pick them all up that are lying about, and I've saved them from year to year. So at the end I picked them all up, and even when I left my previous incumbent, I went and I said, right, can I have all the papers that we saved in the cupboard? And they gave them to me because I don't use them. So every year I save them. Why print them out every year and then you got a whole pile of stuff? That didn't change. My New Year's message changes every year, right? But the Hashem explanations and explanations of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot that I give out, they don't change. Well, sometimes I update them, but and stuff. So I would keep them because why make more shemos? So that's something to bear in mind. As I say, that comes from this week's Parsha. Lo sason kein laHashem elokecha. So it's good to know, right? When people say, "Oh, where's this idea of shemos?" Well, some people say not really comes from the Torah. It's actually not a rabbinic thing necessarily. It's actually a real important mitzvah that we should do our best. Nowadays, you go to shuls and you see people davening on their phones, right? And they're learning on their phones, and they're looking at stuff on the phones. And you have Safari and you have other stuff, so you don't necessarily need to print a lot of Sfarim, although it's no good for Shabbos, right? ArtScroll have an iPad that they offer to sell me for $1,100 that it's only got ArtScroll stuff, so you can't use it for any other internet stuff, that has every single ArtScroll book, Sefer, the ArtScroll Talmud, the ArtScroll this, every ArtScroll publication, and it updates itself regularly. Wow. Although I bet you have to pay upgrade fees, and all of a sudden another 50 new books come out, right? And it's an iPad, right? You have it in shul. Anybody wants to look up something? I said, yes, but it's no good for Shabbos. That's not the reason why I didn't buy it. If somebody donated it, I would get it in a heartbeat, right? But I say, oh yes, no good for Shabbos, Somebody oh yeah, that's right. It was last Shabbos. Somebody asked me, so what time does Shabbos go out, Rabbi? So I told him, he says, I always know when Shabbos comes in because I check on my phone. He says, and he showed me, he said, normally I write it down before Shabbos. I write down what time it is. I check on my phone. He said, this is what I forgot. He says, I got no phone. So it's everyone's so used to technology on their phones and stuff. I wonder what shuls do that have these electronic screens that move, that tell you things, right? So you go to some shuls, they have these electronic boards.
I think they just repeat themselves.
They keep them on for Shabbos and stuff?
I know the little shul were in Modi'in, that's in our apartment complex. It moves slightly.
And they keep it on for Shabbos?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on its own. I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm just saying I just wonder if people like to see things moving on Shabbos and stuff.
It doesn't move. If it moves very little, or there are things that are on the fourth line down that you don't see there.
Right. Some places have adverts that come on too during the week and stuff, programming. I should ask Anshe Muna. They have one. They have a big screen when you come in, and it keeps changing with different things they're advertising. I wonder if that's on Shabbos. Not that it's a problem because it's happening on its own, but I just wonder. It must be a bit strange. You come into shul and all these boards moving, and and stuff. Okay, so that's the thing. The second thing I want to ask you, again, I don't want to get into too squeamish and gruesome stuff because it is lunchtime, and that is shechita. Okay, as I say, we're going to just talk about it objectively. Okay, so if I asked you, where does it tell you the laws or the idea of shechita in the Torah? Okay, so we know there are two places where we are listed the kosher animals. Once is in Parsha Shemini, and once is in this week's Parsha, Parsha Reeh. It repeats. Okay, but there is no mention, I'll tell you now, no mention of shechita in that Parsha whatsoever. So now we're at the bottom, page 1010, and it's the same Parsha in Parsha Shemini, just a little bit bigger, but it's exactly the same. The Torah says, this is now chapter 13, verse 3, page 1010 at the bottom. All of a sudden, you must not eat any abomination. These are the animals that you can eat. Shor, izim. And then it goes on to say, you're going to have the split hooves, chew the cud, right? These are the things you should not eat, or these are of the things you should not eat, the gomel, the camel, the anevas, the shofan, which again people debate. Is it the hare, the hyrax? There's a little bit of a debate as to exactly what these animals are. Not saying that they are kosher, but because they're not, but there are the specific animals that are mentioned here. And of course, Vesachazir and the pig, Kimafris Pasahu Velo Geira. Tomi Hulachem, Besolam Lo Sechelu, you cannot eat from their skin, their flesh, or Venivlosam Lo Shigo, you can't even touch their dead carcasses. No mention of shechita whatsoever. These are what you can eat, these are what you can't eat. Then it goes on to the fish, as they're totally Mikol Sheba, this is right, fins and scales, good. Then it goes on to the kosher birds, it lists a whole list of birds, right? And then, whichever is not on the list, mustn't eat any of the other birds, called okay, but it doesn't say how you eat birds. Then, those sochru kol nevela. Now this is interesting. You should not eat any carcass. So this is even a kosher animal. So what is a nevela? Carcass doesn't say. Very oblivious. You can eat all these animals, but don't eat a nevela carcass. Again, if you look in Parsha Shemini, which is the bigger Parsha, it has a little bit more in it, a few more animals and other stuff. But again, no mention of how you go about eating these animals. Can I just take an animal? Can I do something to it? I say, we'll keep out of the squeamishness, or not. Very strange. But we all obviously know there is a concept of shechita, which is not just an idea, it's very, very strict, right? We have the knife, there's strict rules, and whole kashrus stuff that we're taught about. Very serious. If you muck it up, even a slight little thing, a little bit too far, to the left, to the right of where you're supposed to cut, it's no good. If the knife is not perfectly smooth, no good. If you don't do it smoothly, right? All this sort of stuff. So where on earth does this idea of shechita and the laws of shechita, which are huge, right? All that stuff, where on earth do we find that? So you're probably realizing the answer is in this week's Parsha, because it is a Parsha shir, and I said it's in this week's Parsha. But actually, it's sort of hidden away, and it's not really discussed at all. So the beginning of Parsha Reeh, when I spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu's monologue about going to idols, not serving idols, and so on, and not serving animals to making sacrifices, then he pivots to say, so where do you bring your sacrifices? You bring your sacrifices to the place that I will tell you, which we now know is Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash. The Rabbeinu Bechaye says, I'm going to bring it, why, I'll say it outside, why does it not say where it is? It just says, again and again and again, when the place that I will show you, will show you. He said of three reasons. One, he says if the nations of the world knew ahead of time where it was, they would have gone and destroyed it. Oh, this is your holy place? Ah, good. Goodbye. Number two, if the Shavatim knew where it's going to be, they would have fought over it. I want this place. Now I want this place. So let everybody get settled, right? Good parenting skills sometimes, right? Let it happen. And then we'll snip it in. It's going to be in this place. And the third reason, he says, is think about how much fighting there is now over this place, right? Us and the Muslim, right? We all have this Yerushalayim, all the three religions are their holy place. Can you imagine it was actually specifically mentioned in the Torah that this was the holy place? Can you imagine how much more so there would have been such fights about it, right, nowadays? So the Torah kept it very ambiguous. It's the same with David HaMelech, okay? We talk all about David HaMelech as the chosen one, right? David Melech Mashiach. David is the grandfather of Mashiach. There can never be after David HaMelech, nobody else from a different dynasty. Where's David HaMelech mentioned in the Torah? Where's all this? Why can't Joe Blogs? Why can't he become? Where? So again, if you look in Parshas, when it talks about a king, it says the king that I will appoint, right? It says when you appoint a king, there's an idea that there is an appointment. But again, the Torah didn't say who it is, and we obviously realize later with the prophets that this was David HaMelech, and therefore that's how it is. For the same reason, right? You tell people 1,000 years ago, it's this one man, right? So you telling me that everybody else is out of the picture. So sometimes it's better to, we'll hide it till the last minute, right? So that people having surgery sometimes, you want to tell them all the risks and the dangers and everything. I tease my wife. It's the same with getting married. I said, good job, we got married, So can you imagine if we'd dated for 2-3 years and we'd known everything, probably would have ran a mile, from my side and her side. Well, it's not just me against her. I said, you also ran a mile. If you'd have known me really well enough, really everything about me, you would have known, you would have run a mile too. So sometimes, not knowing, you go into it. So the same thing with the kings and the same thing with Yerushalayim. So it says you bring your carbon to Yerushalayim, you offer the sacrifice, and of course in the desert it was to the Mishkan. And then it says, what happens if you have too much animals? Here, we're now on page 1002. All of a sudden, we're now getting hungry. 1004. I want to eat meat. I'm hungry now, right? We need to eat meat. My heart desires to eat basar. And it's very interesting, and I know we normally have a big vegetarian who comes to our shir, Raphael, so he's not here, but it's interesting. This expression, because your heart desires to eat meat. The Mefarshim saying, what does it mean your heart desires to eat meat? So I think it's now because, we have people whose hearts don't desire. So to eat meat, you have to be somebody, yes, I'm making a conscious decision to eat meat, or not, I'm not disparaging vegetarians. I'm just saying that the fact that the Torah already put it, your soul desires to eat meat, because there's some people whose souls don't desire to eat meat, right? So, the Torah is telling you, there is a way and a means. There's going to be a time when anyway. Eat it with great enthusiasm, no problem. When it's too far to come to the Beis Hamikdash, and it's too far to bring these animals, right? You want to have food for Shabbos. I'm going to schlep to Yerushalayim 3 weeks, come back. So what do you do? Right? You eat it in your hometowns. Great. You don't have to bring your animals to the Beis Hamikdash as long as it's not a korban. You just want to eat meat. You eat meat wherever you want. Delray Beach, no problem. However, don't eat blood. Right? We know we can't eat blood, specifically because in the Beis Hamikdash they would take the blood and sprinkle it, so you might thought that, well, I've got to do something with the blood here. No, leave the blood. Then it says, here, v'zovachta, but you should do this zevach, doesn't say what it is, you should do something for zevach, mibekarcha mitzancha, from your sheep and your cattle, asher nosan Hashem lecha, ka'asher tzivi sicha, like I have commanded you. That's all it is. Hidden away, without any fanfare. How do you eat the animals? Kasher tzivi sicha, as I have commanded you. Says Rashi, of course, if you look down in the Rashis, Kasher tzivi sicha, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. Rashi immediately says, what does it mean? Like I've commanded you? We don't see any commandments. Nowhere in the Torah does it tell you how you take this animal that's alive and make it fitting to be eaten. It doesn't say that anywhere. So where's this Kasher tzivi sicha? Says Rashi, Lamadnu, we learn from here, Sheyesh Tzivoy Bezvicha Heich Yishcha. There's obviously a commandment that Hashem gave to Moshe how we slaughter the animals. Vehein Hilcha Shchita, those are the laws of Shchita. Shenemru LeMoshe Misinai. So all it is 2 words. You should do Vazavach, we translate it to slaughtering, but Zevach is you do something to it. Kasher Tzivi Sicha. And that's how the Gemara in Chulin Tav Chav Ches says, all these laws of Shechita that we fight about are all Halacha Moshe Messina. So you got 1 out of 2. The first one was actually written in the Torah specifically, the one about Shemos, but this one here it's not from the rabbis, it's passed down from generation to generation that Hashem gave it to Moshe on Har Sinai, and it's all alluded to, Kasher Tzivi Sicha, I have commanded you. Ooh, you commanded me? Now we know there's obviously something that Hashem commanded Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's how the Rambam, when he codifies the halacha, says, all these halachas shchita, all were taught to Moshe Rabbeinu. Now we know, as part of the tenets of our faith, is the belief in the fact that the rabbis, that Moshe Rabbeinu got certain laws that are not written in the Torah, that the rabbis explain the Torah in certain ways. We know the Saddukim, the Sadducees. I wonder how they ate animals. The Sadducees, right? They never believed in the oral law. That was the whole thing. So, not that I care, but it's just interesting. I wonder, they used to keep 2 days Yom Kippur because it says you fast on the 9th and the 10th. We say it means the 9th going into the 10th, right? But I wonder how they ate their animals. Because if they don't believe in anything that's not specifically written, how would it's enjoyable? I wonder if there's any historical stuff. Not that it matters, because we have these mitzvahs, and that's what it's all this hilchos shchita, all the, let's use the word difficulty that we have.
The New York State slaughterhouses in Albany, they practice shchita.
Yeah, even for the non-kosher stuff? Right.
No, not for the non-kosher stuff. Just for the cows.
Oh, right. So all cows, even if they're, right. Okay. And I do want to finish off, it's already past 12:45. I want to finish off with a defending of kosher prices. And I say this a lot. I've given lectures on this when I used to work for Kashrus, when I did a Pesach program. This is one of my big things. And you've got giants of industry here. So you know how money works, right? You know how stuff works, so I don't need to tell you. But what I do need to tell people, because people seem to forget it all, is one of the components that make kosher meat expensive is to do with economical factors. So just bear a few things in mind. Number 1, when you take a cow, right, are we able to make use of every piece of that cow? No, we are not. There are certain parts that are forbidden. So therefore, from an economical reason, we have to make money from, let's give an example, 3/4 of the animal. So whereas in the non-Jewish places, they can take 100% of this cow and sell it for money or whatever. Here, because we don't eat the fats, certain veins, the hind legs, so therefore we're only making money off, so that's number 1. Number 2, there's something called a treifa, which means if you find certain defects after death, that they check, they take the lungs. Then they want to make you squeamish around lunchtime, but they check the lungs like they used to inflate tires. I remember when I was a kid, right? They used to take the tire off, put it in water, see if there were bubbles. The guy's name was Yigal, this Jewish Israeli fellow. We used to go for our tires when we had slow leaks, and we'd put them in. If you would see bubbles, goes, aha! So that's what they do with the lungs. They blow them out if there's any bubbles. Okay, and then what do you do now? So now you've shechted an animal. I didn't mean to Google what the average rate of trephus is nowadays, actually, but I forgot. So now I've shechted an animal. I've paid you to shecht it. I've paid the slaughterhouse to buy this animal, and now it's a trefa and I can't eat it. So you can benefit from it and sell it to a goy. The goy's going, okay, you want me to buy it? Fine, but I'm not paying you full price for it, but I'm not paying for all your additional stuff. Why should I? So you have to sell it on the cheap. So again, you're making even the animals you can eat, it's only 3/4 of the animals. Number two, it's not every animal you could sell. So therefore and the third thing is, think of all these extra people. And this is a big bugbear of mine as a rabbi and somebody who's worked in, as I'll say, quote unquote, Jewish businesses all my life. Well, I've done a few side things. There is this notion that people should work for free or on the cheap. And I say to people, and I've said this to lawyers, and I said, do you do cases free? No. Do you, doctors, do you going to do your surgery free of charge? No. And so, was
Actually, yes.
They're going to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He won't charge me.
But he was charging the insurance company.
Yes.
Oh, exactly. So it's not completely free, right? He's getting his money, right? So people don't generally do things for free all the time, right? But there's this notion that, okay, you're being a shechita, this is your job, and it's a hard work. Believe me, I've never done the shechita, but I've been in these slaughterhouses. Number one, it's very pressurizing. Think about how much meat needs to be sold for the Jewish community, right? And unlike this trefa market where you have hundreds of slaughterhouses all over the country, right? Here there's a few. So think of them, and that's one of the reasons why certain Hashwms are not as acceptable as others, because they're too fast. And we're not going into that now, and they put too much pressure and time constraints, right? There is I've forgotten it now. There was the Hashkochas, they have a time frame, and I've forgotten it. It's like 12 chickens a minute. I can't remember now. That you shouldn't exceed, because then you're doing it too fast and you're not taking due care of attention. So there are limits by the fact that it takes time, you check the knife, well, whatever. So therefore, it's a very pressurized. I've been to these places, right? You think, the shochet, the rabbi goes, maybe the olden days in the shtetl, you take one chicken, hello, you want the chicken? Yes, you shecht it, good, here you go. Next person, no, good, I'm done for the day, right? Here, this is really stressful stuff, okay? And then you have the people who are checking the animals, and then you have the mashkichim making sure that things are not going wrong. And that's very important, because a lot of the times, you think about it this way. Just a quick analogy. This animal here is good. This animal is no good, right? It's a treva. Now, what about all the pieces that have come out from it, right? Because you've taken the lungs out. Now you've got to make sure that the right pieces go to the right out. Chickens is easy, because they just pull the stuff out while it's still whole, and you check it all, so it's in the same chicken. But an animal, they have to do all stuff to it, right? Till they get to the opportunity to be able to check certain things. So now, wait a minute. Oh, this is a trefa. Now, where's the head? Well, where's the legs? So you see, there's a lot of organization, right? Each animal is marked. Now, they use infrared dyes. They have a special infrared gun, so they mark each piece of meat with a special infrared code, right? Technology, so it makes it much quicker. So if you have a problem, you go and you check which is the infrared codes. It's not, I think it's infrared code. It's some sort of coding that they can mark the meat with stuff. So think about it that way. So there's all this extra organization, and you have to have people who are keeping track of this, right? And all these people need to get paid. So I like to say this as often as possible. There is a reason. Yes, you may say people are making more profits than they should do. Yes, I'm not arguing with that to a point. But the fact that kosher, in particular meat, is more expensive is for these reasons, for economic reasons, because now you've added all these extra costs on top, you've limited the amount of stuff you can get money from, so of course the prices go up. In Gateshead, they had a fascinating way of keeping the meat prices down. And Gateshead is a town that had loads of yeshiva brachim and semen girls, right? And they never bought meat, because yeshiva was providing them food. So they didn't buy meat, but a lot of these people had money, right? They had money. So what is the way of getting money from people who are coming but not buying food? So most of these, maybe not the girls, but most of these people use the mikveh. Right? You go to the mikveh. Some people go to the mikveh every day. Some people go to the mikveh at least once a week. Erev Shabbos, they go to the mikveh. So they put the price of the mikveh high. And this was a well-known thing. It wasn't a secret. It was known that the mikveh price would subsidize, because it's all a community thing, that the cost that you paid for the mikveh would subsidize the meat, which is a genius idea. But people knew this. It wasn't, hidden stuff. And that way, you kept the cost of the meat down for the people who were buying it, who were, learning in Koil or whatever. So you keep the prices down. The shachtim and the people there still got paid as they should do. And it was a great way of balancing out, some of the... but it is, people need to get paid. It's expensive and so on. And, you want to take a chicken in your back garden, leaving aside the laws, right? The FDA or whatever, fine. You go ahead, shecht it, do it all yourself, eat it, fine. But you're doing it on a large scale, I'll finish with this. When I remember when I never did animals, always did chickens. I remember we paid 90 pence. I'll call it cents, just keep it easier. They paid 90 cents for the live chicken, right? When they brought it in. If I bought it, which I did, there and then, once it had finished, before it got removed. So after it had been shechted, they checked it, they salted it, they did everything to it, and it was ready to eat halachically, cost me $4.20, I think it was, after everybody's fees. And by the time it got to the shops, well, of course, you had to pay for the transportation costs, because the shit house was like 50 miles away from the community, so you pay for the truck and everything. The cost was $8. So yeah, of course people have to make profits and stuff, and things. So that was just an interesting markdown. It was almost half the price if I bought it at the shecht house before it moved on. But so I think we'll leave it there. Thank you everybody for coming.
When I was growing up in the Bronx, my grandmother, Bubby, we would walk